Well, they call it 3 true outcome baseball. It consists of strikeouts, and then there are walks, and then finally there are home runs. Well, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but personally, I'm sick of this kind of baseball. Oh, sure, it's fun to watch like strikeouts once in a while, but not the 9 per game per team that we've had for the last couple of years. And home runs are also a nice treat, but the home run hitting really has risen to ridiculous levels. Neil Payne over on Substack shared this graph the other day. Between 1980 and today, the share of walks, strikeouts, and home runs per plate appearance has risen to about 35%, which is crazy. Want to see the percentages? Here you go. It's been a steady rise for over 40 years. In fact, this becomes even more frightening when you look at the whole history of baseball. So sorry about this graph, the x-axis is flipped. Anyway, go back to the years before World War II on the right side and you will see that less than 20% of plate appearances were strikeouts, walks, and home runs year after year. Yeah, this is a modern phenomenon, no doubt about it. But the crazy thing is that there has been a steady trend towards these 3 true outcomes over time. The years in the 1870s and 1880s had the lowest 3 true outcome ratio ever. In other words, more people were putting the ball in play. Meanwhile, the years of unacceptably high 3 true outcome levels have all been 1994 and on up. And the numbers honestly aren't really even close. So they call our era the analytic era. I call it the boring era. Every team uses the same strategy. Every team tries to do the same thing. Every hitter takes the same approach. Every pitcher is a strikeout artist, and the game has never been more monotonous. Now, I should note here that walks are not the problem. The 2 years with the highest walk ratio per plate appearance were 1949 and 1950, which are actually moderately low on the 3 true outcome scale. Home runs are part of the problem. With the exception of 1987, every single season on this list of top home runs per plate appearance ratios is 1994 or later. But as you can see here, the biggest problem is strikeout percentage. And the thing is that strikeouts honestly didn't used to be boring. In fact, they're only boring where every single guy is striking out. So if you get Kerry Wood to strike out 20 Houston Astros, then you've got something interesting. But if every single team is striking out 10 or more times per game, there really isn't anything to watch, is there? So you're probably wondering what the worst strikeout game of all time has been. Well, there was a doubleheader between the Nationals and Mets on October 3rd, 2015, where both teams combined for 59 strikeouts over the 2 games. 59. I hope that the fans got their money back. On August 28th, 1986, Joe Cowley of the White Sox struck out the first 7 Texas Rangers hitters he faced, setting a record for the most strikeouts to lead off a game. Cowley wound up with 8 strikeouts through 3 innings. Of course, the Rangers wound up winning that game anyway. Cowley had an 11-11 record in 1986 with a 3.88 ERA for the White Sox, striking out 132. He then went to Philadelphia, pitched horribly, and was out of the majors for good. So I guess not all big strikeout pitchers are great pitchers. Anyway, the really crazy strikeout game came in the early 1970s. On July 9th, 1971, the California Angels and Oakland Athletics combined to strike out 43 times in a 20-inning ballgame, still the all-time record. Though this was a tense 1-0 ball game, it was anything but exciting. Now, I know this for a fact. I've got a copy of the entire radio broadcast. In fact, you can download it too if you want over at the members area of my Substack. I've listened to it several times and it's interesting. Vida Blue, who had a crazy good year, struck out 17 through 11 innings but had no decision. Rudy May of the Angels struck out 13 through 12 innings. Anyway, minutes before curfew would have postponed the game, Angel Mangual of the Athletics hit a single to right field off Mel Queen, which finally ended it. There were 2 men out when he hit that single. Now that second out of that inning was Catfish Hunter, a pitcher who came in to pinch hit for the pitcher, and he struck out, of course. After striking out 5 times and going 0 for 8, Tony Conigliaro announced that he was retiring at the end of the game. He concluded that his eyesight simply was beyond repair. Now, some of you already know this. Tony C. did attempt a comeback as a designated hitter with the Red Sox in 1975, but he wasn't very good. I will note, though, that he only struck out 9 times in 69 plate appearances that season, which is a little bit better. But we're getting off the subject, so here's another little bit of trivia for you. Did you know that nobody struck out during Game 7 of the 1960 World Series? There were home runs, of course, especially this famous one by Hal Smith. And then you know about this one by Bill There were also a few walks thrown in here and there too, 5 in all between the two teams. And all of that led me to wonder, has there ever been a game with no 3 true outcomes at all? Can you imagine a game with no home runs, no strikeouts, and no walks by either side? Well, it did happen, twice as a matter of fact. The first time was back in 1922 when the Boston Braves hosted the Brooklyn Dodgers. This game was remarkable. No walks, no strikeouts, no home runs, not even an earned run by either team. Neither catcher had a putout or an assist, though each had a passed ball. And the game took only an hour and 12 minutes to play. It was one of those incredibly fast games. Well, these days you're lucky if you've hit the third inning after an hour and 12 minutes, and that's with the pitch clock. So it turns out that the 3 true outcomes slow everything way down. Down 2-0 early, the Braves came from behind with 3 runs in the top of the 6th. Those runs came thanks to 2 straight errors by Ivy Olson, who was the old Brooklyn shortstop. Olson, of course, was 36 years old at the time and was in his final full season as a regular. His defense was far from spectacular. The Brooklyn papers thought that the game should have really remained scoreless given how the pitchers pitched. And as it stands, the game was certainly historic, though I'm not entirely sure that everybody quite realized that at the time. The next game without 3 true outcomes came only 2 years later. Now this one was a bit different since it was a part of a doubleheader. 33-year-old Sherry Smith, having his best season, started this one for the hometown Indians. He pitched remarkably and the newspapers picked up on that. What they didn't notice though was that Hollis Thurston of the White Sox also pitched a remarkable game. Since this was the first game of a doubleheader, the newspapers only gave it a short story and there wasn't all that much to their report. Cleveland won this one 7-0 and made it look easy. But look closely, there were no walks, there's no record of any strikeouts, and the only extra base hits were 2 doubles and a triple. And of course, it only took an hour and a half to play. Now, if you're curious, the second game of that doubleheader went 10 innings, and the White Sox managed to sneak out the win. Well, and that's probably why they didn't pay too much attention to the first game. Anyway, so there you have it. To my knowledge, there have only been these 2 games in the entire history of baseball with none of the so-called 3 true outcomes. Now, do you think we'll ever have another one? The way that things are going now, I wouldn't bet on it.